course, nobody will forget where they were on 9/11. That's 10 years ago. And those were difficult times, especially for those of us who were trying to explain exactly what 9/11 was all about. But immediately afterwards, there was a fair amount of legislation that came up. The first bill that came to the floor to rectify these problems that existed wasn't to address foreign policy or exactly asking questions, why do people commit suicide terrorism? Where did these people actually come? Certainly wasn't Iraq. They didn't ask that. They said, what we need to do is pass the Patriot Act. Which makes no sense. I talked to one member of Congress when we wrote on it. I says, why are you voting for this? You haven't even had a chance to read it, and it has some terrible stuff in there. He says, how can I not vote for the Patriot Act under these circumstances? How could I go home and explain it? I says, well, that's what your job is. But almost every bill in Congress has a title to it which is exactly opposite of what it does. And this is a perfect example because I think if it had been properly named, it would have been called Repeal the Fourth Amendment Act. And most likely they would have had a difficult time passing that piece of legislation. But how in the world can attacking your freedoms in initiating this attack on our privacy, search warrants, searches without search warrants, all the way down, which more or less establish we have to go through at airports, why we are suspected terrorists without probable cause, and we're treated that way. Why, if you're involved in the monetary issue, you might well be charged as a terrorist, and it's just the term is thrown around. And how in the world will passing the Patriot Act make us safer without an understanding of what's going on in the world? And it's an attack on our personal liberties. So it is liberty that is the cause. That is why we continue to campaign for liberty. That's why this organization is so important. It's to change people's mind and to change the political situation in Washington or locally. I am astounded at what's happened since the last campaign, the last election period, with the Campaign for Liberty going around the country. I meet people that ran for office. I don't think we've counted them all, the different offices they won in state legislatures around the country. Even here in Florida, some have run and won, but they're numerous. So that is where the encouragement comes from, because the ideas are alive and well. Yes, we have terrible problems. Yes, they've undermined our liberties, but we still have some left. We're still in this room. We still have the opportunity to elect different people in Washington. And right now, we have a tremendous opportunity, because the evidence is crystal clear that the views of the last century almost, at least 70 years on 80 years on foreign policy and monetary policy, the evidence is in. They have failed, and our views are now appropriate to be put in place.